with the marketer's Braintrust. Sorry, we're starting, oh my God, 10 minutes late. Small technical problems. It's amazing. I don't know how Hollywood does it. Apparently, I don't know how Hollywood does it.
They
Corey,
have professionals.
they must have professionals, not the kind of professionals we are, apparently. They must have, like, sound people. Corey Burke is off working with our numerous clients today, so he's not going to be able to make this hangout. And so I'm joined by the ever lovely Michelle Chan Sangdong, and always difficult to say too. I don't know why I have a problem with that. And then of course Dan Thies, who's not hard to say.
I'm actually changing it to Thang Song though next week, so I got to go to court.
Great, that's.
So then you'll have to say Michelle Chan Sang Thong and Dan Thang Song.
That's a lot of song.
Because we're just trying to help.
Just trying to help, and I really appreciate that. God knows I don't have enough problems doing these anyway, right? All right, so good. So we have a presentation. This is like part 2, a continuing saga of math and your business. And so, do you guys have anything that we want to say in the way of announcements before we get started?
Little baby Google update last week of some kind, and nobody knows what it is, and Google says, yes, we did something, and no, we're not going to tell you about it. So I think the age of transparency is completely over now. And, yeah.
Okay, then. Great. All right. So, yeah, age of transparency. That was, how long did that last?
6 weeks.
Was it that long? Sure,
they did release 2 transparency updates that were actually reasonably transparent before they started backing down and then stopped doing them altogether. Our commitment to transparency was really more of a thought about we'll see if we decide to keep doing it.
Yeah, then the
like
test
everything
failed.
with Google, they just slap a beta on it like you would on Hangouts. I'm sure Hangouts is still in beta, right?
Well, it's certainly a beta for us. I don't know if anybody else could lead it. Yeah. I mean, I know other people who do them a lot better than we do them, but that's, yeah, your mileage will vary. So, and this one wasn't Hangouts problem. We haven't actually had a Hangout problem in a little while. But, oh my God, the microphones that stopped working. Are you kidding me? Okay, well, let's go ahead and get started with the prepared presentation then, shall we? Which is always, this is where I really tend to go completely nuts, but anyway, so present to everyone. Yeah, okay, good. And then there's the show screen. Show entire screen. Yeah.
Okay, don't forget to make you the presenter.
I did that already.
Already?
Yeah,
wow.
I know, right?
Last week.
I know, exactly. Learning
Good job,
is learning.
sport.
Seriously. Okay, so today we're going to it is progress. So funnel math. We're going to talk about the math of your funnel. And so this is, by the way, in case that didn't wake you up, the single easiest and fastest way to grow your business. Typically, you can it very reasonably, unless you've done already a whole bunch of math on your funnel already, likely you could double your business. And so in this episode, what I'm going to do is I'm going to change the way that you think about your funnels. And I say funnels plural because it ought to be multiple funnels. We'll get to that in a little while. If it's not, well, you need some more because more funnels is better.
Well, it really is multiple funnels whether you know it or not.
Well, there's that. I suppose that's true. Good point. So I'll motivate you to go make them better by showing you some real examples and helping you figure out how to analyze the math for your own fine business. And that should be motivation enough once you see how to do that. I'll show where and how to look for the biggest kinds of improvements, and it can be either biggest first or fastest first or some combination, and I'll even show you how I could even help you do that. Let's take a hypothetical case just to introduce you to the problem, the reason that you're probably not thinking about this right. So this will help you try to change your stinking thinking. Let's say that you have some clickable lead item on your blog, like a downloadable report or something like that, and when you click that, you get an email opt-in form to get the item, and it might look like that. For example, that's a real it's a real free guide by one of our written by one of our clients. Click on that.
A free butt guide.
A free butt guide, exactly. And this, by the way, we talk about this later, but this looks fairly enticing. I mean, and you're trying to sell the click here. So, and it goes to a lead, a lead form, capture page, right? Good. Well, let's suppose for the moment that 10% of the visitors, and that what I just showed you there is on the blog for this particular client, right? So let's say that 10% of the visitors to that page, to your page, click that call to action. Let's just say 10%, all right? And let's say the form that they go to, for every 100 people that hit that form, 70 of them actually complete the form and get to the thank you page. That seems pretty good on its face, right? Well, let's suppose also that I could show you how to increase the first step, by just 1.5%. So just 1.5% more people click that pretty picture. And then let's say that, gosh, 5%. Maybe we can increase the conversion on the form by 5%. So instead of 70%, it'd be 75%. And so, are you excited yet? All right. Does 1.5% excite you? Does 5% excite you? Well, you should be excited. You should be very excited because I just got you 23% more leads. So 23% more leads should excite you. If that doesn't, you should just go ahead and stop now and use the next 30 minutes to better advantage. But 23% more leads for a business should be very meaningful for you. Question is, how did I go from 1.5% and 5% to 23%? Well, it's pretty tricky. The tricky bit is percentages of percentages. There are two things that the human mind does not process very easily, correctly, intuitively. One is percentages of percentages, and the other is nonlinear equations. But don't worry about nonlinear equations. We're not going to do that today. Where I fooled you was 1.5% sounds little tiny, but hang on. It's 15% increase on the 10% you were getting. So now think about that. If I had said, what if I could increase your conversion by 15%, you'd have been impressed with that. But all I said was, I'm going to increase the conversion rate on this step in the funnel by 1.5%. Okay, see, it's all about the way you use the percentages. The percentage of the percent, in this case, is 15%, and that's the actual lift in your business. Now, it's better than that because these are multiplicative. When you increase the number of people who get to the lead form, now you increase the number of people that are there to be increased further to get to the thank you page. And so 5%, by the way, is 7% increase on 70. It's not 5%, it's 7%. And so when you do the math, you have 1.15 times 1.07 is 1.23. So just getting a 1% improvement turns out to be a big deal. 1% can be a big deal. On that lead form, it's a 10% growth in your business. Not a 1% growth, a 10% growth. And that's why most people ignore conversion testing. Because they look at their lead form and they say, I don't think I can increase it by 10%. You don't have to. Although, oftentimes we can. Because our real examples are almost always better than that simple hypothetical. All right? And I'm going to take you through, I think I have three or four in this slide deck that I'll show you. So first start with one that's so ugly that everybody will know that this was not tricky to make better, okay? But the rules to use is, first of all, more fields means less response. And particularly when all those fields are together. We'll talk about that in a minute. So remove what you don't really need. It's like, oh, well, I wonder, for example, I love this one. It's like, how did you hear about us? Who gives a rat's? No, don't ask them, how'd you hear about us? One is that they're not going to self-report that very accurately anyway. And what are you going to do with the data? I literally had one client say, well, I'd just like to know. Huh, well, would you like to have more money? Take it off. Also, you can split the form into multiple steps. If you have to ask 7 questions, ask it in like 3 and then 4, or better, probably 2, 3, and 4, or something like that. Split it up so that you roll over them slowly. Well, here's that big form we were talking about. Oh my God, run away. So what is this? Well, this was for a patient referral for snoring and sleep apnea disorders. It's a real client. We worked with him for a number of number of years actually, and he's coming back again. Well, so what's wrong with this? Well, first of all, submit. Nobody likes to submit. I don't want to submit. I want good stuff.
Well, there are a few people out there. You can find them on Craigslist.
I suppose that's true. And the other one is a CAPTCHA to do math. I mean, wait, stop.
I was told there would be no math after high school.
That's right. Certainly not 4 + 4. Good grief. And then all of these other things that are here, it's like that he didn't really need all of this data. Now you have to be careful. The quality of your leads will go down because certainly anybody who goes to the trouble to fill out this many fields is highly motivated. There are other ways to test their motivation, though. One way would be show them a pretty picture of the future they're going to have when they stop snoring forever. You see? So there's a bunch of things different here. I mean, this was not the first split test, by the way. We went through about 8 iterations, I think, before getting to this landing page, which, as you can imagine, performed actually, well, thousands. Actually,
I know
thousands.
that's the winning call to action button.
Yeah.
Better now.
Sleep better now, right? And it was literally thousands of % improvement going from that original form to this one, and we did it in steps. But you can see some of the things here that are kind of key to the better conversion. It's like, one is you're showing a picture of the future instead of that ugly ass form we had before. You have a real good call to action. The sleep better now. It's obviously a much shorter form. This is the bare minimum he needs: name and email address, and he needs to know the postcode or town so that he can match it to doctors in their vicinity. So a far nicer job, right? Now it doesn't have to be that. It doesn't have to be that bad for you to make substantial improvements. Let's show you a simpler one. And again, what we did here is limit the number of questions, and we also changed the offer. In much the same way, you could make a claim that this was a change in the offer too, because it at least says stop snoring forever with a device that lasts a lifetime. None of that text, none of that future pacing of the great benefit that they were going to get was on this original form, right? So not only was this ugly and just scary, but it just didn't even have the right call to action and other stuff. So here's a
Leslie, do any of these examples have a telephone number capture?
Yes.
Okay,
yes,
good.
that one right there does. It's which form field is it?
Okay, I was just going to mention, you said removing fields is in general, right? Adding fields lowers your response and removing them increases it. But one that I've seen very effective when we're capturing a phone number as an actual requirement is a checkbox that says call me immediately. We always call them immediately because they're a lead, but having that checkbox there not only increased our response on the lead form, but we actually ended up closing at a higher rate just by having that there. So
yeah, interesting. And the couple of examples from now I'll show is almost the inverse case, by the way. But yeah, here you can see the fourth form, the form field is telephone. And again, he didn't actually need that data. But yeah, anyway.
Yeah, well, at the time they weren't actually calling them, right?
That's true. They were having they had the problem with so many leads
just in case of emergency.
Kind of like that, yeah. So let's move on. Here's a simpler one, but it's still dramatic. So you can see the before and the after here. Ask questions, have questions, ask us now, and then we had first and last, email, and phone was optional. Request quote and questions or comments. It was like, wait, I'm confused on what I'm even supposed to do. Like, why do I need their last name? Again, fewer fields, result in higher conversion rate. Then there were a bunch of other things here about this form that we just recognized in terms of looking at the data about what got filled in and what didn't. The other thing is it doesn't really offer much in the way of a a benefit here. So get info now. Well, it's better than submit.
If you're trying to persuade someone, your choices are either solve a problem, which is really hard to do in a form and not a sales letter,
right.
Or make a promise.
Yeah.
Promise a better world. What's my better world going to look like? I'm not sure that have questions, ask us now is really the assured response within 1 business day is kind of a okay.
I guess that's better than none.
Underwhelming promise, really.
Underwhelming, pretty much whatever. So again,
it won't take us that long to get back to you. We hope.
Yeah. So through a series of iterations with this particular client, we got to the lead form, the lead offer on the right. And again, he had to write a 12-page book that was essentially a regurgitation of a lot of stuff that was already on his website. Learn the 10 critical factors, select an ultrasonic cleaner. And all we need is your name and your email, and get me the guide, 100% privacy guaranteed. That was outstandingly better than the other one in terms of the number of leads he got. How much? We can't say exactly because he didn't have good analytics, but that's another story. So we had to just back into it from total lead flow. But again, I mean, this is a much simpler form. In fact, many of you may have a form somewhat like the one on the left as it is now. If you're asking for first and last, ask yourself, do I really need their last name? Really? I mean, I'm not going to call up and say, hello, Bob Johnston. I'm going to say, hello, Bob. And so you don't really need their last name in most cases. All right. The other one is
And
scary.
by the way, if you just say enter your name, a lot of people will dump the first and last in there anyway. So
yeah.
make
right.
it easier for them and harder for you.
Yeah, which, by the way, could screw up your CRM depending on what, but whatever.
Cause you to have to do some cleanup.
Probably will.
More leads probably pays for that.
Probably does at some point. So the next one, and Dan, this kind of relates to the points you made. So this particular one was, and it was what I refer to as scary questions. And so in this particular case, the client was getting leads for installers, and then flipping those. So it's a lead gen site, It's a very huge lead gen site. I mean, he was already doing 7 figures when we came upon him. Now, it's a multi-step lead form, and it's divided up into pages. If you put all of the fields on one form, it would be totally overwhelming. You would not want to do that. I think there would be something like 30 questions. So this was split up into multiple pages, and that was great, and that's the way we found it. The major thing I noticed in the very first phone call with him was that the very first page asked for the phone number and the best time to call. And so I went into Google Analytics, which was properly instrumented, in fact, so good for him, and I noticed that there was a 90% dropout on the very first page. It had a 10% pass-through on that first page. Ouch! Well, now, why is that? Well, phone number and best time to call means that some pushy salesman is going to call me. And I just don't know you well enough yet, okay? So what we did is we moved the phone questions to the last page. Now, the dropout on the last page increased somewhat, okay? But the dropout on the first page decreased a lot. And so that the end-to-end improvement ultimately was well over 100%. I think it was 151%, but I don't know for certain. And that was, by the way, the first of 5 successful improvements, all to that one series of, half a dozen pages. You're probably wondering what the other improvements are? Okay, I'll tell you. So the first thing we did, we would put social proof on the second page. So one of the things we had to know was what area of the country they were in. And so that was one of the things on the first page was zip code, postal code. So on the next page, he, from his back-end system, computed how many different successful installs and testimonials basically he had from within their region of the country. Huge increase from that. Again, it was a social proof thing, right? Because then in the second page, now I said, okay, I've given you my name and where I'm at approximately, and on the next page you show me, oh, look, we have lots of your neighbors, basically, are existing customers of ours. Huge impact, right? Then
it'd be cool to be able to actually measure how many more, how much more valuable that made the leads for the installers too. But I guess we can't know that.
That's an interesting point, Dan. I mean, he could back into that.
And if I were an installer, having somebody like that's actually in adding that much value, and it's local, and so it makes me look more like this was a local thing and not some big giant pushy sales guy conspiracy to waste my time. Anyway,
that's true, and he could back into it because he does.
And if these were your own leads that you were going to work yourself, think about what that would do for you in terms of the responsiveness of the leads.
It's
going to improve it.
Yeah, because you've pre-sold them pretty heavily at that point. The other thing we did is we, at the end page where we had the phone questions, we valuized for the visitor, for the prospects, why that phone call was so important to them, instead of just looking like it was a value to essentially the installer, which is, fundamentally it's true. But so what he said is it was something along, I don't remember the exact text we put there, but it was along the lines of that we can give you, in order to give you the best estimate, in order to provide you the best service, we need to make sure that we have all the details right, and so there'd be a brief phone call to cover those. Again, that had a huge that decreased the failure rate, the dropout rate on that last page where we were looking for phone calls. So if you look at the value of having moved the phone call question and valuized it, that alone was enormous. But the other things were, like, we added trust factors in front of the funnel. Right, this is kind of cool. So instead of actually looking at the numbers on the funnel itself, we were able to get more funnel starts by what we put around the button that they push in order to get to the first page. And those things had to do with the basic, the seen on TVs and in the press and that kind of thing. Because again, this client was extremely well known in his field, and so having that kind of gingerbread around that in the neighborhood of that button got us more clicks on that button. The other thing, and this design matters. This individual is an engineer, so I speak his language. And he resisted for quite some time modernizing the layout and design qualities of the pages within that cart, within that funnel. And that also had a significant bump when we finally got that work done. So taken together, what was the result of this? Well, despite the fact it was a regulatory change and new competition in the market, and the market environment therefore went badly negative, he still doubled his business in that year. Within 12 months. Actually, it was slightly less than 12 months. I think it was 10. All of that was from funnel improvement, and parenthetically, he was under a Google penalty at the time. So, which we didn't get removed for like months after that. Here's a third one, and this one, for those of you who are in e-commerce, okay, well, yeah, lead gen is easy. Well, no, not always, by the way.
It only looks greener over there.
Exactly. It only looks greener. And this is at the other end of the spectrum. This is the single most complex checkout process I have ever seen. It is a custom printed product, without going into any more details than that, and it has a bunch of really tedious questions that are required in order to get the right thing printed. And the client, a longtime follower of ours, had done a lot of optimization. I mean, not only did they have their analytics in place, but they had split testing being done. So by the time we came on the scene, they had already done lots and lots of optimization in that cart, and had for quite some years at that point failed to get any better. They continued to try some split tests occasionally, and they still didn't come up with anything that made a difference. It took me 3 months to come up with something that made a difference, but it made a difference of 1.25% total end to end. And you think, okay, well, yeah, that's a big deal, right? And that's the entire cart. And the change was literally taking one part of the page where there was a lot of questions on that page, and instead of sort of stringing them together, we arranged them in sort of an accordion tabbed kind of an approach. It's kind of hard to explain, and I can't show it to you. But changing just that one part of the page, what it did, psychologically, what it did is it made the form look less imposing. Because the way it was, you get this like scroll, oh my God, I'm going to get back to that. I'm hungry. I need to go to lunch, right? And so there are lots and lots of dropout at that step where they're trying to complete this purchase. That made it a little bit friendlier, and I think ultimately if their platform would have supported it, we could have gone to a multi-step checkout process that would have been even better, using Ajax in order to make it fast, but their platform just didn't support it. But we did get this to change, and the result is many thousands of dollars every month in new revenue, because this is a substantial sized business, and that's from a 1.25% profit, change in conversion rate. Again, a percent matters if you're big enough, and even a percent matters if you're not big enough yet, if you can find other percents downstream of it to multiply it by. So testing really is your highest value activity. These are not isolated instances. Pretty much every single client we work with, conversion, if it's not the first thing on the list, it's because something's broken, and then it becomes the first thing on the list. If you have traffic now, then test your conversion. It's as simple as that, because you can almost instantly, make more money with the traffic you have. Now, let's say you don't have traffic. Then test your message. It's just testing. Continue to do both of those forever, by the way. Don't say, oh, I'm going to test conversion and I'm going to call it good. No. Always be testing both your conversion message, conversion and your message. Because bear in mind, and I'll come back to that, traffic is just another kind of conversion. and I'll cover that point in a minute. But there are only 3 secrets to conversion. Only 3 secrets to getting high conversion. One is make it easy. Whatever you want them to do, make it as easy as possible. And that means like reducing number of form fields. Okay?
And if it can't be easy, make it look easier.
There's that. Good point, Dan.
Number 3.
Yes, and we'll get to that. And so make them want it. That's the reason that, and our liposuction client, has a picture of a butt, hey, oh, okay, you're going to notice that. It's sitting over there on the right-hand rail of the site. You're going to notice that. You're going to want to click on that, and we make it easy for you to go do that and fill out the form. And then finally, this is the point that Dan was alluding to: commitment overwhelms reason. Now, what do we mean by that? As soon as you take some action, as soon as your visitor takes some action, they become slightly more committed to completing whatever the process is. And that's one of the reasons, for example, that if you have 20 questions to ask, making one big form with 20 questions, bad idea. But if you can split that up into 4 pages of 5, you will get far more people to complete that process.
Well, and one of the most extreme examples of that I've ever heard of, I was out doing a stupid thing with Google and Consumer Reports about all those fake Viagra ads and stuff that are in the AdWords that they were making lots of money off of and pretending they couldn't control. But Mike Moran from IBM was out there, and he told us about the change in conversion that they got from going from basically having configure your entire custom-built system on one screen to something where every decision was one step. And so they went from fill out this one form and you get a quote to there might be as many as 25 steps in the process. But every one of them is just, well, do you want the big monitor or the little monitor, or give me quotes on both, and then you keep going. And so you don't know how many steps there are going to be, but each one of them, that little bit of inertia is enough to keep you going to the next one and the next one. And the deeper you get into the process, the more committed you are to it. Exactly right.
Exactly right. We had a client for a short time that's actually was selling couples counseling. Is what it ultimately, relationship counseling. But the multi-step process he went through had a couple of decision points in it, so it was almost like write your own novel, kind of a thing. And I think the deepest, or the longest path was 5 pages. But with each successive page, despite the fact that we're very, very similar size forms, I mean, it was only 1 or 2 questions on each one of those pages, the completion rate went up tremendously as you get deeper and deeper into that funnel. So the most of his dropout was really on the very first 2 pages, and the rest of it, people completed at a very high rate. If he had done that and tried to do that as a single long form, it would have just been a disaster. So the other thing you can do in that context too, I mean, from that, I should have used that as one of the examples, is you can get a lot more personal with the questions. Kind of like in the case of the installer we were talking about, where we move the phone number to the last page. By that point, the person is much more committed and trusts you more because it overwhelms reason, right? They have no reason to trust you any more than they did 3 pages ago. But because they've gone along with your insanity for 3 or 4 clicks, they're willing to click some more. And so it's very, very important to recognize this, that commitment overwhelms reason, that you really do want to get the person committed through a process. Is the reason email marketing works so well, by the way. Okay, great. So that's the 3 secrets. Traffic is just another kind of conversion. For all of you people who are just thinking about traffic. Well, guess what? You really do have to sell the click no matter where it is, and that could be in your AdWords ad, it can be on your search, your search descriptions. What is the purpose of the title on your page as far as search optimization is concerned? Is selling the click. Always test your message. Message. So where do you test? Well, here's the thing. There's a lot of choices, and the ultimate simplest answer, not very useful answer, is everywhere. You should test everything. But here are some rules to think about. First, earlier in the funnel, you get bigger numbers because people haven't dropped out. So for example, in the case of where we move the phone number, testing later in the funnel without having fixed the phone number problem it would have taken much longer for the test to converge. Why? Because we were losing 90% of the total visitors on the first step. When we fix that, suddenly we have huge numbers downstream by comparison, so it makes it a lot faster and easier to get finished tests, right? So you got to figure out, do I have to start early in the process because I have big enough numbers, or can I, start later in the funnel where you know more about the prospect? And that's the thing. You already have some commitment and consistency from them, and you also know, because they responded to the messages early in the funnel, you know something about them and how to talk to them in an even more intense way, an even more attractive way, so that you can get them to convert. So it's whether you have big numbers or a really hot prospect, right? Up front, here's a rule. Up front, you want to make it as easy as possible. You want people in that first click. As soon as they click once, you have increased the likelihood of them clicking again. So make it really easy to click the first time. For example, there's the argument about, well, should I have a picture of my ebook that says click here, followed by a form, or should I have the picture of the ebook with a form underneath it? Well, you should test it, but remember the rule, make it easy. Right? And it might actually be a lot easier for them to click the picture of the book and then realize, oh, he wants an email address. Okay, sure. Right? Because on that form, I can resell them. Because right next to that opt-in form, I can say, this is the best decision you've ever made. This is a great book. It's going to change your life. Money will come raining from the sky. Oh, okay.
Nancy M. in Phoenix says.
Yeah, exactly. And that's
Why are they always in Tucson?
Well, they're not. They're in Woodstock when I do it, because what will happen is, that's the other thing you can do if you want to be really sneaky. You can say, I'm looking for only 3 people in Frisco, Texas to work with. And they got that information because they geo-IP'd you when you clicked. Okay?
Right. I mean, really, they'd be lucky to ever get one. But
there's that. Yeah. And that's really, by the way, that's really common in the dating and relationship and the hookup sites and whatnot, stuff like that. There's even one guy I know that's doing this, looking to hook up. Standard stuff there, the escort or at the edge of that community. And again, when you click on that call to action, it says, find the hottest babes in my case, Woodstock, Georgia. Your mileage, your location will differ.
All right, Leslie. I don't want to know why you know so much about this. So let's just leave your private life out of it.
Man, I tell you what. So those are some of those guys are using some of the best tech of anything. Almost, you look at any business. I mean, the ones that are the most competitive are the guys that are best educated, and that's porn, pills, and casinos. Those guys really not sell.
That's always been the landscape since we all started this, hasn't it?
Oh yeah, absolutely. You're right. I mean, you can learn more in a day from porn, pills, and casinos than you can learn like any other business. So, if you're later in the cycle, you know more about them. You've got them to commit to a little bit of some action, right? So at that point, you can talk to them a lot more directly, and you can amp it up without being hypey. If you did stuff early in the funnel that you do. The earlier it is in the funnel, the more likely you're to be able to get ab reaction. You're going to get negative reaction from being hypey. But later in the funnel, it's the opposite is the case, and it begins because commitment overwhelms reason. All right, so there's some choices about where to test. There's also the faster versus better. So, for example, you are likely going to get the most, longest term benefit from testing your cart, particularly if your cart is in any way complicated, like that e-commerce client with the custom printed products. However, you're looking at small numbers, and we have one client, I was talking to just yesterday about this, where he's trying to run a test, and he's not going to get it to converge because he just doesn't have enough total conversions there to that he's going to get the test to complete anytime soon. So you may have to test up front where you get faster conversions. And so that means getting more add to carts. And there was an example of that, a special case of that, when we were talking about the installer, where we had to change the first page because we're getting so many dropouts on the first page, we didn't have enough traffic to test to the rest of the pages. And of course, you may want to do both if you have sufficient traffic. Don't be running tests that are going to take 6 months to complete. There's no point in do that. But if you have both enough traffic in the cart in order to complete a test, and you can get more add to carts at the same time, hey, do that. And we've got clients where we're doing exactly that. Or, hey, you could start with something just totally brain dead simple, so at least you get in the habit of testing. Like, for example, how about this? This is, I don't know how many sites that we have worked on where that's the opt-in. Sign up for our newsletter. Okay, I'm totally underwhelmed by this. This is the standard lame practice on pretty much every e-commerce site in the world. Offer a real reason. What in the hell would I want to sign up for? I get enough email as it is, right? You got mail is no longer a rarity. So can you do something to double the opt-in rate of that form? Heck yes, every single time. Double's probably at the low end of what you should do. You should be able to get 5x out of that. Maybe it requires writing 12 pages of drivel. That should take you about 90 minutes of dictation, followed by having somebody, on Odesk clean it up for probably $27. All right, there's no reason why you can't put together some lead item about your product or service or whatever to at least get that. And that's what we did in the case of the ultrasonic cleaners, right? We changed ask your question to get this book that you need to have before making a decision about ultrasonic cleaners. Classic example of doing this. And that's at least get you past, over the hurdle of doing the first test. So why aren't you doing this right now? Well, I've heard all of the reasons. I don't even have analytics. Well, okay, that's a problem. You need to have analytics, and it's not hard to do. I don't have time. No, you have time. This is the highest value activity in your business right now. So if you don't have time, it means you have to take something of lesser value and set it aside. Now, that's probably not packing and shipping. I mean, I understand you've got to deliver product. But what the heck else are you doing with your time? And if you're not split testing and you find more money from the traffic you're getting right now, okay, that's a problem, right? I don't know how to split test. All right, well, you know what? There's lots and lots of data on there, lots of information on that. We actually have. I don't think they're in Freeline. I believe they're in our membership site where we show how to set up and run your first split test. And I think the entire 20. I think it takes 20 minutes to show or something like that. I don't know what to test. Well, now that is a problem. I will grant. Every client that we worked with, we've had to help them figure that out. But you know what? There are some simple things that you can do, and we've covered.
Well, that's why you installed analytics, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, there's that. That'll tell you where to test. It may not tell you what to change. And most people don't know that. Oh, well, dropping the last name field will increase my conversion rate. Yes, it will. And so there are some certain rules of thumb of things that we always know to look for, and those are what we try as tests first, and then we start inventing stuff depending on the client. So you previously didn't know how important this is. That's the real reason you're not doing it, right? Because if you don't have time, it just means you're spending time somewhere else where you shouldn't be by comparison to this. This is the single highest value activity in your business today, is testing, all right? But now that you do know it, okay, what are you going to do? You really only have two rational choices. And I emphasize rational because there are other choices. You could do drugs or whatever. But no, the two rational choices are you could start doing this yourself and do it today. As soon as you get off this hangout, you should start doing testing, or you can let me help you. And that's what we do, right? We start with a 60-minute call and map out a plan to find the test to run first, and that's pretty simple typically, and we can figure that out usually in the first 30 minutes. Then we're going to talk for 30 minutes every 2 weeks to move that plan forward. In between calls, you can email questions, and one of us will get you the right answer. Typically, that's going to be things about how do I install Convert.com, and where's that link to the special offer you have for it, or gee, my analytics is broken. What do I do? Okay, those are the kind of things we can handle, and we have people on staff. I mean, we are now at 20 or 21 people. I have to actually the payroll ledger, but there are 20 or 21 people in our organization at this point, and somebody is pretty much good at everything. For most of you, we're going to start by getting analytics right, because most of you probably don't have analytics right, if you have it at all. Then I'll get you running your first split test, and it may be as simple as getting your newsletter opt-in fixed. Whatever it is, at least get some testing done. And wherever we've gotten people to start testing, then it attaches to them like or remora, right? I mean, they can't get rid of it. Then they start thinking of split tests to do. And usually they do too many split tests and I have to pull them back in. All right, so from there, we can move on to split testing, whatever the highest leverage point is in your business. Now, that may be, we may not actually be able to get to the highest leverage point first because of a lack of traffic there, which we talked about that. But certainly it's going to be the place where we can get the most short-term benefit from doing testing, and that's where we're going to start. To add me on your team to do that is just $1,500 a month, and if you can find someone else to advise you on business growth and conversion for less than that, then I should think that you should definitely hire them. I don't think you're going to find that person for $18,000 a year. So you could just go to seobt.co/PC to hire me. It's as simple as that. Now, why would you want to do that? Well, do you want to do conversion testing yourself, or do you want to do it with my help? That's it. It's as simple as that. The third answer of not doing conversion testing is not the right answer. That is not the right answer. If you don't have traffic, then we need to start testing your messaging. And Facebook is a wonderful place to do that, by the way, and we'll loop Michelle in to help with that. If you've got traffic, great. Let's go test your conversion, because whatever traffic you're getting right now, you're going to make more money with it if you can find where those people are dropping out, where you're losing them. Everything you have can be tested. All your traffic is tested by messaging. All your funnel tested by doing split testing, and we like convert.com for that. Once you get those leads in, now what? Well, gosh, you know what? An email sequence is kind of like a funnel, isn't it? Again, it's testable. You can split people out in different segments, and you can test different messages. There is always some way to test your way to higher profit, and it happens always faster than getting more traffic. Yes, you can turn on AdWords and get traffic tomorrow, but you better have your message tested before you do that, or you're just asking to lose a bunch of money. Would you like to get more Google traffic? Absolutely. Fabulous idea. It takes more time to make money that way than it does to get better at conversion. So I encourage you, either do this yourself, or or have me help you with it. But if you're not conversion testing, and if you decide to keep on not conversion testing, just realize that you are giving away money to your competitors. And now, does that seem like a really good business decision?
I don't know. It's worse than that, though. I mean, it's really, I deal with, obviously I deal with AdWords all the time, but the fact is, you're either competitive or you're not, based on how much value you can extract from that click you're buying. And those that aren't testing and aren't improving are falling behind the ones that are doing it. And at a certain point, you do get to a place where you have to buy traffic at a loss in order to be able to test your way back into the market. And nobody wants to get there, but it doesn't take that long if you ignore it.
This is a true statement. Absolutely, it is. It's a sad thing. I mean, you really, at some point, you really are going to have to test in order to stay in the business at all. It is what it is.
I was looking at one last fall where I was a prospect to maybe have us manage their AdWords, but I looked at it and said, your site hasn't been changed in the 3 years since the last time I looked at it, but the math in the auction has changed to where now the traffic costs 3 times as much. When you were a little bit better than break even back then and we wanted to do testing, that was the time to start. Now, tell me where we're going to get the money to spend to get enough traffic to test with, because that's the only way you're going to save this thing. And literally, once you're down to the only way I can survive in this business is Google sends me free traffic, it's time for a new business plan at that point.
Yeah, pretty much, I would have to say. Let's see what questions we have here. What is the same as the Abrams geometric multiplier concept? Yeah, and by the way, Carolyn talked about Jay Abrams' geometric multiplier concept, which I think he may have actually gotten that from Paul. Not sure, but Paul Lemberg's Formula 5 model, where he shows that if 15% improvements in your business that are multiplied together, and generally you can find those, by the way, 1.15 to the 5th power is 2x. So the way to double your business is to find 5 multiplicative 15% improvements. Let's see, Marge says that other form is reminiscent of a hotspot opt-in for their PDFs, which I used to do. I'm not sure which form she was talking about, but yes, I mean HubSpot is very good at this. There are a bunch of others. WordStream is really good at that. A bunch of people out there in the marketplace you probably follow that are doing a good job of this. Marge says some schools of thought suggest that only asking for an email address increases conversions on an opt-in list. That is true. And I'll tell you why we look for name as well as opt-in. And that's because we are so much about the email. All right. And so what I want to be able to do is I want to say Bob, comma, blah, 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 blah. I want to have that level of personalization in my email. And if I don't ask for first name, and I end up with a CRM that has no names in it, I just don't.
And by the way, Leslie, I mean, judging from what I get from when I mail my list, I'd say somewhere between 1 in 10 and 1 in 5 people think that's a personal message because I inserted first name fix into the email template.
That's right. That's exactly right. So, yeah,
and that's among people that are online marketers.
Yeah, that's true. That's wild. I mean, that's the thing. It's like, this stuff works even when you know it's being used, right? I mean, it works anyway. It's about the way we're wired, because you're speaking to that piece of the brain back here somewhere where we used to be.
Yeah, once you see your name, it activates a part of your brain. You didn't do that voluntarily, and you can't stop it voluntarily.
Exactly right. Exactly right. So yes, you're right, Marge, that will increase. That will increase the number of the limber leads you get. It decreases the value of the leads. And by the way, we had this problem when the case of the snoring client. He didn't snore, but yeah, his customers do. We did find a problem with that, where the final form that we ended up with, he had to change his downstream process for managing those leads, for developing those leads, because the lead quality itself did go down rather substantially and dramatically. He also had differences in the leads he was getting from search and AdWords and Facebook. They were also very different. And because he was smart enough to tag them, I think I may have actually suggested that, but he was smart enough to actually get the work done. He could see that happen downstream, and that was a very, very important change in the business. Terry said it's a lot easier to be in multiple business models when you have a few billion in revenue. Well, Terry, I disagree with you. Actually, it's harder for them to be in different business models because they move like brontosaurus. It's very, very difficult for large companies to change their model. It's way easier for us little guys to change our model. For example, in the present case, we essentially transformed from a teaching and training organization to a service organization in 4 months. Imagine a large company doing that? I don't think so. Can you change an e-commerce business or evolve an e-commerce business to also be a lead generation business at the same time? In a heartbeat. All you have to do is write a 12-page report, and now you're in a lead gen business, right? Now you're going to sell those leads yourself. You're not going to flip them to your competitors. Don't get me wrong. But the easiest way for an e-commerce business to add value to their business is probably to have an opt-in for an email list. Is to probably do free content, which is what we do with our SEO clients, right? Our content marketing clients, and to have some free giveaway stuff to get them an email list so they can do email marketing. One of the simplest ways in the world for an e-commerce company to grow and what are they doing? They're changing their business model. They're adding information marketing to their business model. So no, I disagree. I think that it's actually the small guys that are actually far more able to add business.
I think also you're probably thinking of business models a little bit differently than Terry is, but
could be. Multiple business. Well, okay. So help me out with that. What does that mean then?
Well, I'm not going to be selling tomato soup on the internet over here and providing financial management over there, because then I'm a parallel entrepreneur instead of a serial entrepreneur. But as you said, right, it can be as simple as adding a little bit of information marketing to generate email leads for an e-commerce business, or for lead gen businesses. I mean, a whole lot of people are out at Ryan and Perry's event this next weekend or whenever it is, traffic and conversion, and what have they been doing forever? And a lot, we've done it too, but right, sell a physical product for the price of shipping it, and now you've got a lead with a much more in-depth record than you would have gotten, right? If I was going to download that as a PDF, you think I'm filling out all my address and my phone number and my full name and all that stuff? No. But on the other hand, if you're going to ship me a thing in a box, well, now you've got a reason why, and so now I've got And we haven't even gotten into what you can do with, having more complete records here in terms of targeting and segmenting and figuring out what offers to make to who. But it can be transformative for a lead gen business to do physical commerce when you can make it work. That's why a lot of lead gen businesses that advertise on television. What are you calling for? A free DVD, right? They don't even need you to pay for shipping. They just need all that information.
That's right. Yeah, full records are very valuable.
You can't go watch it on the internet. You got to get the DVD shipped. Why? Because they want enough of a record to be able to run you through databases and figure out if you're worth more time or less.
Exactly right. Exactly right. So if that's what you meant in terms of like market diversification, you're absolutely right. In fact, that's one of the great things about having a cash risk, a cash flow, business is then you can actually expand by acquisition. It's a smart way to do that instead of starting your own. So yes, I mean, if you're talking about market diversification, I agree with you. Money talks, and pretty much the rest of us don't. But in terms of what we were talking about business models, and so we'll reference last week's hangout about the different business models. Information marketing, affiliate marketing, e-commerce, lead generation, that kind of definition of business model. Then that's where I think that the smaller businesses are actually in far better position to add to their model. So if you want help with that, okay, and so the things that we are focused on with our private clients is, first and foremost, we try to make them more money as soon as possible, and generally, almost always, I can't think of an exception really. Well, AdWords sometimes is an exception, right, where we can say, oh, wow, you have a big opportunity, for example, in Google Shopping. The other area, though, is conversion. 100% of the time, we can find a way to make money for a client by working on conversion. And then after that, usually it gets into business growth. It gets into growth strategies. How is your business organized? What's your product mix?
As you improve the numbers, you basically open up new opportunities to open up different channels. So right now, I've got somebody that we're working with that's doing Facebook advertising that we'd love to be doing AdWords advertising for, but the math on their business just doesn't support it. Their conversion isn't good enough. But fortunately, the traffic we're getting out of Facebook converts a lot better because it's very, very precisely targeted around a lot more things than just what they searched for. And as we start to improve the conversion there, it's we're getting closer and closer to that day when I can say, okay, we need to open up AdWords and start running search ads. Where you start kind of depends on where you are, and you really do want to kind of have somebody that knows their way around to look at that with you.
Yeah. So anyway, that's a wrap for today. We've covered through all of our questions, and so if you want us to help you with conversion and just business growth in general, but probably conversion is the first thing that ought to be on your list, then go to seobt.co, not com, co. It's in Columbia, I guess. /PC. Simple as that. So seobt.co/PC. Get signed up. If we find out that it's not going to work for you, that's fine. I mean, you have 30 days to make your decision anyway. There's a 30-day refund policy on that, and there's no month-to-month requirement. There's no month-to-month contract. So you can come and go as you please, and we've had clients do exactly that based upon kind of the ebb and flow of their business. So with that said, I think we're done. Dan and Michelle, are there any last comments before we sign off?
Don't fake the funk on a nasty dunk.
That was freaky. Okay, Michelle, I hope you can beat that. But
no, we're actually maybe next week I'll have some things to report. I'm doing some testing with clients on Facebook video and whether to use the Facebook promote your video advertising version or use it as a boosted post. I'm doing some tests on that.
Well, that'll be interesting. We may take a look at that then. All right, very good. Well, thanks everybody for hanging out with the Braintrust today, and we'll see you next week at 3 p.m. Eastern Time on Tuesday, just like every week. Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye.